This week, we welcome Fleming Shi, Chief Technology Officer at Barracuda, to discuss the latest ransomware trends in 2022. In the Leadership and Communication section, answer this question to assess your leadership. Partner across teams to create a cybersecurity culture, the future of cyber insurance, and more. Business Security Weekly starts now.
This is Security Weekly, for security professionals, by security professionals. Broadcasting live from G-Unit Studios in Rhode Island, it's the show where we explore the business of security to improve the security of business. Your trusted source for actionable insights on leadership, communication, and innovation. Get ready for Business Security Weekly.
Monitoring and maintaining compliance is a never-ending struggle with a high price of failure. Firemon helps customers meet complex and varying compliance requirements. Firemon has fully customizable reporting, analytics, assessments, and dashboards to meet the compliance needs of any organization. With Firemon, compliance reports take a tenth of the time, and real-time continuous compliance eliminates the anxiety and headaches of audit preparation. Improve security outcomes by improving security operations with Firemon. Visit securityweekly.com/Firemon to learn more. It's time to rethink how we approach cybersecurity because the reality is modern cyber attackers are already past your initial defenses. ExtraHop helps your security team find and eradicate advanced threats before real damage is done. Protect your enterprise and customers with better defense. Learn more about how ExtraHop stops advanced threats at securityweekly.com/ExtraHop. That's extra HOP. Cyber risk and compliance automation is finally here. Legacy GRC systems cannot support the powerful, real-time automation and oversight that organizations require to take risks that matter to succeed. CyberSync continuous control automation ingests data from the IT GRC stack to update controls against regulatory requirements and risks in real time, delivering insights and visibility. See how members of the Fortune 500 are saving millions annually by visiting securityweekly.com/cybersync.
Welcome to Business Security Weekly. This is episode number 252, recorded February 28th, 2022. I'm your host, Matt Alderman, here in Colorado. Joining me remotely are my co-hosts. First, we welcome back Mr. Jason Albuquerque. Welcome, Jason.
Hey, Matt. What's going on? Had a nice little vacation up in the mountains in New Hampshire. So did a little skiing, snowboarding, playing in the snow. So it was a fun week for me and the family. It was the kids' school vacation, so we had a blast.
Yeah.
So it's great to be back. It's great to have Tyler on, too. This is awesome.
Yeah, well, Tyler filled in for you last week, but Tyler Robinson is here to fill in for Ben Carr because he's over in Israel this week. Welcome, Tyler.
Thank you. I get to be on the show twice a week. This is fun. I like this show. This is usually a pretty good discussion.
I try my best. Don't miss any of your favorite Security Weekly content. Visit securityweekly.com/subscribe to subscribe to any of our podcast feeds and have our latest episodes downloaded right to your phone. You can also join our mailing list, Discord server, and follow us on social media and our streaming platforms. This segment is sponsored by Barracuda. To learn more, please visit securityweekly.com/Barracuda. Fleming Shi is no stranger to this show. He joined Barracuda in 2004 as the founding engineer for the company's web security product offerings, helping to create the first version of Barracuda's message archiving product and paving the way for expansion into new content security product areas. As Chief Technology Officer, Fleming leads the company's threat research and innovation engineering teams in building future technology platforms to deliver continued success in the security and data products. He has more than 20 patents granted or pending in network and content security. Fleming, welcome back to Business Security Weekly.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here and joining you guys. It'll be a fun show.
We always have a great conversation. We're going to talk about ransomware. And what I thought was interesting is this topic is coming together at the same time. I just did our ransomware research last week at our eSummit. And so we went out and we did a survey, 300 IT professionals, and we were just curious on kind of the state of ransomware. And I just want to share a couple of the facts that came out of our research. And I want to kind of validate if you're seeing something similar on the Barracuda side. What I thought was interesting is 43% of the respondents had one or more ransomware attacks in the last 2 years. Some were up to like 11 or more, which I thought was a little surprising. Of that 43%, 58% of them paid the ransom. And your commercial is going to come up next where it says don't pay the ransom. 58% seems a little high. I'm just curious. And then the last fact is even for that 58% that paid the ransom, half of them, 29%, still found their data on the dark web, which means it still got released anyways. Thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, this is a similar trend we have seen here as well. If you think about the ransomwares, how it's progressed, the attacks are no longer just getting the data back to you or just getting your business back online. It's also holding you ransom for potentially just your customer data. Leaking the data will end up in future attacks, right? So people are already getting that level of awareness. So there's usually a second or third payments they're looking for, and almost like an ongoing kind of extortion, and holding your data in that kind of hostage mode is what they're really used to now. And I think the trends that you have seen, folks who are getting attacked multiple times, that's also being something that we have seen as well, because usually they have targets, and then once they identify, the ability, you can have the ability to take care of the payments. They probably find a way to repeat, and basically causing more issues for you. And it's unfortunate in that way. To them, some of these repeat offenses are based on their own data science of who are the ones that are capable of actually paying this and return to business, right? So to that degree, I think is obviously related to the level of fear, the level of uncertainty, and the level of urgency during the when you are not able to get to your data. So yeah, similar trends that we're seeing, and also we have done similar studies in the past in webinars and polled the audience. We have seen pretty much majority of the folks have already faced some level of ransomware attack. Yeah,
I think some of the stuff we are seeing too on a secondary note of what's happening is the second stage and third stage, where you're ended up with customers that are getting ransomware and their supply chain, the information that's gleaned, the intel and communication chains that are happening between other customers. Those secondary customers are now becoming the target from data that's either leaked or been gleaned from, even if you pay or don't pay, right?
Absolutely. So first is hold your data ransom. So then you do the payment, you get your data back. Second is hold your customers' information, or like you say, supply chain, or all your vendors, all your business partners. And that's the third attack, where they can hold you ransom for, you have to pay again, otherwise I'm going to attack your customers or your associates or your affiliates, right? So generally speaking, it's a network effect in their psychology to drive more fear and more obviously more benefit for them.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen instances with some customers even where they're going a fourth and a fifth step, right? Mm-hmm. So fourth step is threatening some type of denial of service, right? Bringing down their operations. I've seen where they threaten to sell information to competitors, right? Yep. We will sell your information off to your direct competitors and put you out of business. I mean, any way, shape, or form that they can start creating that fear and uncertainty, they're going to use it to manipulate and get more money. More to the case of, why are we going to pay this ransom, right? If they're just going to keep coming back to the well for more, they know that you're going to pay, and they're going to try to eke every cent they possibly can out of you. Yeah. Now we as security experts now have to struggle with the business case and sitting in front of a CFO and a CEO and a board of directors to have to fight for why we shouldn't pay. And in many instances, those CFOs are going to come to us and say, I need to get the business up and running as soon as I possibly can. I don't have time to wait. We're going to pay. Right. So that's the struggle that I've seen, is that conversation, that they want to get the business back up and running as soon as they possibly can.
Yeah, very, very true. There's one phrase I saw recently. It's like, to build your reputation takes 30 years, maybe even more. It takes only a few minutes or hours to completely lose it. So think about your business integrity and everything, how it's going to affect your vendors, your partners. And I think it's a key component of how to make that decision. Also, as you mentioned, right? So the targets are, in the old days, maybe people think about, executives, they only target executives. Actually, non-executive staffs are also being targeted, right? Especially IT, finance, sales. They time it correctly and identify the things that you might be more vulnerable to. If you target IT, you can potentially capture a lot of important credentials, including keys that allows you to laterally move in the network infrastructure. So to that degree, like you mentioned, it goes based on what kind of data they get. They have, escalated to more severe attacks based on the nature of the data they can get their hands on. Especially if they get their hands on the customer data or your affiliates or your vendors, they can laterally attack others. If they get IT data, they might identify the IP ranges that your services run on, so they can mount those DDoS attacks and additional penetration into your environment. So yeah, very, very true.
Now, as a security leader at an organization that has just recently gone through a ransomware attack, I'm probably trying to figure out what protections to put in place. And we are seeing it from our results. We are seeing, an increase in spend and on various products. But I look at the results, and when I see people attack multiple times, what's preventing people from really moving forward to, if I've been attacked, I'd want to figure out how to close the doors immediately so that I don't get attacked again. How should an organization respond, and what are some of those things that they should think about doing to prevent the next attack? Because we are seeing multiple attacks to the same organization.
Yeah, a lot of it has to do with thinking about how ransomware have evolved to what it is today. It's actually weaponizing multiple threat vectors, right? So from email, which is phishing, to the people who unfortunately could click on some link or open a document. That's one way of thinking about the initial element of it. But more than that, now we start to see, because we already, I call it the post-breach era, where basically a lot of our data may be already in the hands of the bad guys through other, previous data breaches from, let's just say credit bureau and those guys, right? So they're social engineering to the degree where they can actually find ways to see they can penetrate into your infrastructure without even doing a phishing attack, right? They can actually look for basically legacy credentials and identify, because people are working from home, so they're very likely people will be running VPN, and if they're able to identify a type of challenge or basically security authentication that's weak, that doesn't have any type of secondary MFA type of mechanism, they will obviously try to brute force. So I think it's way beyond the days where ransomware just lives in the attachment or lives in the link, then it just destroys your computer, then unfortunately lock up your file. Now they're actually looking to penetrate into your web applications, your infrastructure. And then they actually may have been there for a while until they're ready to take advantage of the data. Then when they do the encryption, they laterally move, identify the most useful assets to go after, right? So it's beyond that point. So I think to protect your overall posture, find ways to reduce the attack surface, right? Going from VPN to a microsegmentation type of option using zero trust network access or network, something basically requires you to measure the security posture constantly on the endpoint, and obviously apply it with MFA. Also, account takeover is another example I give you, because account takeover can happen without you clicking, because it could be someone's legacy account that basically, let's say Office 365, and then getting into your account, they can eventually route conversations, setting up rules to eventually basically mimic and monitor your activity. Eventually they take action. With account takeover, you also lose credential, because a lot of the SaaS applications are single sign-on, right? So basically, if you have a token or authentication scheme that requires you to get into Office 365, then you get your designated application. That round trip could be hijacked to the degree where they can get into your application simply because they got into your Office 365, basically that tenant through account takeover. So my point there is that it's way more sophisticated than just a single product that filters email in transit, a single product that blocks a malware, zero-day malware. It's now to the degree where you have to pay attention to not only the phishing email and also getting to understand how your infrastructure for your network, for your IT, as well as your applications, where you run your software for your customers, right? It could be servers, could be microservices, could be API-based enabled software. So those are also extremely important. So you have to pay attention to that too, because I can use example from last couple of years. You saw critical, infrastructure getting taken over. That's not necessarily a phishing attack. It's actually due to a penetration through a VPN device, right? So using a legacy password that was already lost in the dark web many months ago. So that said, yeah, you got to cover all bases. Of course, having data recovery capabilities, making sure you have encryption, so even they get hold of your data, they can use the data to hold you, ransom for extortion. Those are ideal methods in place. And if you do have VPN, make sure you modernize it to the degree where it's not just single username and password, right? So, yeah, I take a pause there. Yeah.
That was a lot. But even if I do all that, which are things we outlined in the research as well, we talked about these. You said people, they could be sitting already on your network, which means detection and response, lateral movement monitoring, threat hunting types of things are still going to be important, even if I can minimize the attack surface and lock all these things down. If they're already in and sitting there kind of dormant, then you got to monitor for the east-west traffic, not just your north-south traffic anymore, right?
Absolutely. So, yeah, the development of visibility of all your attack surface and all the signals you're getting, it's getting better. So the tooling, what we call the OpenXDR, which is extended detection and response, allows you to correlate these signals. So if you are seeing some behavior problems, let's say someone's trying to log into your environment, a particular server from multiple IPs across the world, that should be triggered as a signal immediately. Because if it's just logged and just tracked in the audit, when you come back to do your threat hunting, it might be too late, right? So you want to be able to take that signal and immediately turn that rule into an event, which you need to investigate. And when you do that, obviously the MITRE attack framework is so broad. There's hundreds of different methodologies involved. But if you use the right tools like XDR, it will give you the ability to correlate this multiple events together to actually see a potential attack or maybe a trajectory of the attack it's moving to. So that's obviously very important. And also the concept of rehydration is important as well, because you may have a long-running system. I still remember in the days when I just started getting into basically into full-time work many years ago. One of the things people are excited about, oh, my server has been running for 30 years, 20 years, never went down. Wow, that's awesome. But guess what? Today's world, you want to be on the fast track to rehydrate your workloads, because you don't want to have a system running that long, having being vulnerable and potentially being embedded with, basically bad actors. So the point there is you want to use automation and programmatic capabilities to programmatically orchestrate your workloads. I think that's what's the future anyway. So people are seeing containers, Kubernetes taking off, because what's really happening is you can basically rehydrate an environment and wipe out an environment. And what that requires is solid APIs in security products. So your products that has proper API capabilities will allow the DevOps and SREs to orchestrate this workload, and including your servers interacting with your security measures in your AppSec, for example, for application security. Then you can do these things very frequently and very constantly refreshing and modernizing your container and making sure it's up to date. So I think that's another key area people should pay attention to. Yeah, long running servers, not a good thing anymore. That's the way I think.
Yeah. I mean, I couldn't agree more on the detection and response side of the aisle. Just to kind of take it back one bullet point that you had mentioned, because that persistence that's in your network may not necessarily be the end result of the attack. We're seeing folks, that persistence is being sold off. And that wait time could be the malactor waiting to sell off access so that way they can go deploy ransomware, right?
Yep.
And at the end of the day, that level of detection, being able to find them before they get to their ultimate outcome, I think is extremely important.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I was going to just add to that. So one of the things when you touched on that is that one of the things I recommend people don't get weaponized by the bad guys, because if they take over your system, they may not do anything necessarily bad just yet. They could use your reputation to attack others. So I just leave that portion there. We're going to open up more conversations.
Yeah, we might go there a little bit here in a second. But my point was, or some of the organizations that are being attacked don't necessarily have the resources to man it. There's a skill shortage we talk about a lot. Do you have the right skill set on staff to do all this detection response? Smaller companies are susceptible to a lack of resources to be able to do some of this monitoring that needs to be done to look for these attacks, which is probably the other challenge for the small to medium-sized businesses, just lack of people.
And Matt, I'll add in there too, a lot of the perception, and we'll hit on this, and when we start talking through the leadership articles too, a lot of conversations that you have with CEOs and boards will sit back and have that old school mentality of, well, isn't that just like insurance? Won't my cyber liability insurance cover that? Well, new day, new dawn. We're going to be talking about that later, but it's not, right? That's not a fail safe. That is not a solution. So, some of those small to medium businesses are still in that mindset of, it's just insurance.
Yeah.
Well, on top of that, you're not going to be able to carry some of those cyber insurance policies either post-breach or enable to get a new policy or one that's been extended. When you start to talk about procurement and the ability to do business, a lot of places require this now, and the stringentness of a lot of the insurance companies, what they're going to be looking at and how they're going to be getting that certificate of health, what you're actually doing that matters, is going to be well outside of just a questionnaire. It's going to have some teeth to it. It's going to have some depth and brevity to what is actually being done that matters, rather than just looking at the same old traditional stuff that we've looked at the last 10 years.
Yeah. The next segment's going to be fun, Tyler, because there's so much going on in the insurance industry right now.
we all know how insurance works. They are out there making money too. So if they can make money, it's going to get harder. So, but generally, back on the resource, shortage, it's very, very true, right? So, it's not something. If you feel like your resource level is not able to run a proper SOC, a security ops center, to really address some of these attacks in the future, it's probably the right time to consider a managed service provider that knows how to do this all the time. And I think because threat hunting, correlating the signals, if you're just getting the data together with your own personal elk stack, it's probably just too much data for you to figure out what's going on. So really having the right tooling, and maybe it's beyond something that you want to do, because you have to focus on your business, right? You could be a lawyer, you could be a dentist, you could be a teacher, my thinking is, identifying the right managed service provider that can help you with the SOC behind it, with the right tooling behind it, might be the right move.
Yeah. One last thing on cyber insurance to kind of wrap up the segment before we get into that heated debate Jason talked about. Cyber insurance doesn't cover nation state or act of war, and we're seeing a shift of ransomware, not just about the monetary, but truly destruction. Like,
yes.
Where does this go, Fleming? Are we going to see more attacks where they don't even care about the ransom anywhere? It's just literally, I just want to destroy data.
Yeah, the current the geopolitical environment really kind of enables and basically some of these attacks are no longer just monetary gain. It's about destruction and chaos or leverage against a much larger objective, including anti-sanction, right? So I'm thinking if you look at the weapons, usually there's multiple stages. They usually come in with a way to get you to click on something, or maybe they are getting parts into your system, then construct that weapon. Once it's ready, it could be purposed for actual ransomware attack, hijacking your basically your data, extortion, which traditionally we have a way to address, but in a destructive manner. It's far worse because there's no negotiation. They will basically take down your file system, damage your boot records. So at that point, it's really at the point where if you don't have a backup of your entire system, it will be days or weeks before you can get back to business, right? And if you think about that, if that's critical infrastructure, we're basically going to end up hurting our livelihood. Right. Yeah. So I think that's the situation we're facing. It's getting worse in that way. Yeah.
Yeah. And I would even say if you can get back to business, right, Fleming? Because there's been a couple of instances where honestly broke my heart to see some organizations who were 30 plus years in business got attacked, ransomware attack, didn't have the right resilience measures in place. And you have business owners who have to sit back and say, do I remortgage my entire life or do I shutter the doors of my business?
Yeah, I remember seeing some news about that too. It's unfortunate and really sad to see. And as much as we think maybe in a way, but that somewhat denial, but the world is built with software. There's a lot of software. There's a lot of supply chain. So basically what I'm trying to really drive that awareness is that these software will have vulnerabilities. There will be a database on the not only on the front that we see every day, but also the bad guys will have idea who is the target. How do I take advantage of supply chain to infiltrate into more critical businesses or even critical agencies of our government, right? So generally. Everyone's part of it. We're all interconnected. Doesn't matter if you're enterprise or small, medium size. If you're a HVAC vendor or you're folks who are just sharing data as a service to a large company. So this is becoming a very connected and a dangerous situation if we think about the supply chain aspect of it. Yeah.
And unfortunately, the other truth around some of that is that not all insurance companies are good or out there for their customers. There are a lot out there that are doing really, really good things. They really genuinely care about the policies they write and helping their customers get back on their feet. That's why they write them. But the ones that are not so good, there are clauses that we're starting to find that negate some of the liability off to the insurance for things like wartime or nation state attacks. Any of these things can be attributed and the wording can be very misleading in certain investigations to, suggest that it was part of wartime or it was part of a nation state, and then they don't get a policy, even though they thought they were covered, doing the right resiliency and business aspects of doing. They may not end up in a spot any better than someone that didn't have coverage. So really making sure you're partnering with places that have good reputations and are doing good things for their customers and clients is important too.
Yeah.
Couldn't agree more, Tyler. There's so many instances where you see a breach of attestation. You go through the questionnaire in the beginning, you fill it all out, and then some nuance was found, and the insurance organization comes back and say, no, we're not going to cover you as a breach of attestation. You lied to us in the beginning. You didn't tell us the entirety of the truth about your architecture and your organization. It's unfortunate because so many organizations go in there, businesses go into it thinking that they have coverage, and it's not always as absolute as they think it is.
Fleming, you confirmed one thing for me: brick and mortar, paper journals, and cash.
Gold. We need gold.
Yeah.
Fleming, thank you so much for joining us on Business Security Weekly.
It's my pleasure. Yeah. I look forward to the next time. Yeah, definitely. Hopefully the world's hopeful world peace, right? Obviously, but when it comes to ransomware, look for some help if you're feeling the struggle. Yeah.
Absolutely. If you want to learn more about how to protect yourself from ransomware or about Barracuda, please visit securityweekly.com/Barracuda. We'll take a quick break and then cover the leadership and communications articles for this week.